I'm delighted to be here just to talk about my organization that I'm representing. I work at the Clean Air Task Force based in Boston, Massachusetts. I actually live in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And there's been some transformational things that have been happening over the last 3 years at Clean Air Task Force, and it really all can come back to the effective altruism movement and what this has had an impact on our growth. So hopefully you have attended at least one or two of my colleague Lily O'Darno's sessions. She was part of the keynote last night, but in case you didn't, just a little very quick information about Clean Air Task Force. We were founded 25 years ago in 1996. We have 106 people currently employed. When I joined a little over a year and a half ago, we had 30. I was employee number 30, so that's essentially what the talk is going to be about today. We have a $35 million budget, and most of that is philanthropic, so either foundations or from individuals. Our mission, of course, is leading the way for an affordable zero-carbon energy system and advocating for pragmatic policies, new business strategies, and advanced technologies. So we do that by changing the narrative, changing technology, changing business models, as well as changing policy. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. We do policy development, advocacy, rulemaking, litigation, legislation. We were very involved in the recent EPA ruling, education and outreach, commercial assessment and support, so working directly with businesses, industry. We do a lot of research analysis and collaboration. So how we're different, hopefully this came across in Lily's conversations as well, but I also think part of how we're different is part of why the effective altruism movement and folks involved in it have been really interested and excited about what we're doing. So we're a little bit different than the mainstream. So if you were part of Catherine's talk this morning, you heard her talk about how unusual aspects of the effective altruism community is that there's openness to unusual ideas. You know, we focus on optionality in the energy system and decarbonizing the energy system. So we're definitely more about like, hey, let's employ more options, not just the usual suspects. We're also taught, she talked about truth thinking and the scout mindset. So oftentimes Clean Air Task Force is out there pushing new ideas, a little bit radical. We consider ourselves to be radical pragmatists, which is a little bit of a misnomer, but very true to ourselves. We're very cooperative with our partners. So even though sometimes they don't necessarily agree with everything that we're doing, we want to cooperate because we do believe that this movement requires effectiveness and cooperation. And then we're very driven. And then finally, like what also Catherine talked about is that the effective altruism movement is a bit technical and jargony at times, and we have yet absolutely been accused of that at Clean Air Task Force as well. So our organizational DNA and why we need to grow. I talked a little bit about this. We're very focused on real-world, pragmatic understanding of technology, the solutions, this broad approach to what the climate challenge is and how we need to really address it and solve it, and then how we can really establish that in a global context beyond the EU, US base. And so this is an example of where we've been active and then where we're expanding. So you can see that we've been very active in many countries, and then of course Lily has talked about the activity that she is leading in our sub-Saharan Africa work. But really the focus of today's conversation is the EA tipping point. So from the first 22 years of our organization's existence, we really only sought and secured funding from foundations. So traditional foundations like the Gates Foundation or Hewlett Foundation or those kinds of traditional foundations that provide restricted funding and are pretty rigid in what they fund. We really only secured money around $5 million annually, and we're pretty restricted to like what we could do when it came to creativity and trying new opportunities and seeking new things out. Then in 2018 and 2019, one of the effective altruism's organizations, the Founders Pledge, actually did an evaluation of climate change nonprofits and which ones were effective and which ones they wanted to do additional research on. And so after about 300 hours of research and looking under the hood of Clean Air Task Force and what we're doing, they named us as one of the most highly effective climate change nonprofits in the world. So that was absolutely our tipping point because we then resulted in additional endorsements and insights from other effective altruism organizations. We became partnered with Effective Spend-In, with other organizations globally, so that brought our awareness of our brand and what we were doing on a global scale. It also resulted in more individuals recommending Clean Air Task Force to their businesses. So we started getting donations from businesses that we never had even on the radar or anything. So all the while, we still also then started getting additional credibility from other foundations. So this is really the work that my team and I lead, is really harnessing the fundraising growth that we've seen in the last 3 to 5 years. So this is highly unusual. So I don't know how many of you are involved in nonprofits, but to grow at this exponential point and at this rate is very unusual. So right now in 2022, we're actually surpassed our revenue that we received in 2020. So to be growing at this rate is incredible, and it's also a very wild ride. Here's examples of the effective altruism partners like I named. So the scalability of what we're doing is made possible because of the endorsements that we've received and the partnerships that we have. So people are actually able to give in their own home countries, oftentimes taking a tax credit and then able to then direct the funds to Clean Air Task Force and help us in our global expansion. This is also an example of how the endorsements that we've received has had impact. So we actually are asking donors whenever they're contributing to us on our website, how did you hear about Clean Air Task Force? What motivated you to give? And they're actually saying things like, I heard about you through Giving Green, which is an ID Insight project. I heard about you through the Vox article. Well, the Vox article cited Giving Green, and Giving Green endorsed us because of the research that Founders Pledge did for us. So really that's what I'm trying to establish is that the effective altruism movement has helped us grow at this exponential rate in a way that we wouldn't have been able to if not for the unrestricted funds that we're now receiving. I just wanted to provide some examples of individual donors so that you can get a flavor of who these people are that are contributing to us. So, I think I heard from Ollie this morning that, a lot of the donors for the Effective Altruism, Center for Effective Altruism are these big, large-scale donors, which, yes, we have benefited from some of those, but a vast majority of our donors are just like regular people. So Clifton, he is a professor in Maine, and he is actually teaching classes on effective altruism, and they as a class came together and decided to research who were the most effective organizations that they wanted to contribute to, and they chose Clean Air Task Force. We also had a retired engineer that was really interested in the carbon capture and sequestration program and got more interested and then decided to give. And then we also have people like families like Jacob and John who heard a podcast with featuring about Sam Harris and giving what you can, and that resulted in them giving. So it's not insignificant. $10,000 is a really big deal, and it's really been like the lifeblood of the growth of our individual program. So you can see that we have a large majority of our donors that are US based, but very quickly we have a huge amount of donors coming from the UK as well as Germany and other European based countries, and then of course also in Australia and New Zealand. So we're very lucky and grateful for the contributions we receive. And then the blueprint for growth. So I just wanted to share that even though this growth has been happening very quickly and very rapidly, we're very much attuned to wanting to make sure that we're still having the impact that we've had originally when we first received that endorsement from Founders Pledge. And so, we're taking a lot of intention around being sustainable and making sure that we're supporting our employees. We've actually instituted a different leadership structure, and we're making sure that we're doing things with intention so that we're not just growing to grow, but we're growing to be more effective and impactful. So like I mentioned, for the first 25 years, we were tiny, 25 people, $5 to $10 million budget. Right now, we're 100 plus with $35 million. And then we're anticipating the future. We don't know that we're going to necessarily grow to this large 500-person organization, but we're anticipating what that world might look like if we continue to have the momentum and the support that we're receiving. So we're not necessarily saying we have to do that, but we're absolutely preparing for what that could look like and what the impact could be if we were to pursue that. We're also investing in the machine for the organization. So oftentimes when people think about growth with a nonprofit, they don't understand the machine kind of engine that it takes to ensure that a nonprofit can sustain itself and not, create burnout or make sure that it can be as effective as possible. And so that comes into play with work that I'm doing in development, but then also in operations, IT, marketing, communications, making sure that we're telling our story and telling the impact of what we're doing. And then of course, ensuring that we're managing the financial impact of the organization as well. So major growth opportunities, I think that Lily actually talked about a lot of this in her talk. So of course, we're shifting the global oil and gas industry. We're growing worldwide. But I did want to share like some of our focus areas and programs and regions. So we are growing in various regions across the world, as well as focusing in on varying programmatic areas. So I don't know if there's time for me to answer a couple of questions, but I wanted to build that in just in case. And just thank you again for the support, because truly it has been the effective altruism movement that has helped Clean Air Task Force grow to where we're at.